The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
You're listening to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. I'm JC Rader.
And I'm Julianne Schroeder.
And we're therapists bringing you honest conversations around emotional wellness and self-development.
Inspired by our personal experiences in therapy and because of our clients, we realize therapy has so much to offer both on and off the couch. Listen for tips and tools to navigate all the challenges that life throws your way.
To give us feedback on topics and guests, or for more information on our community events, counseling, or online services, contact us at everydaytherapypodcast.com. Hello, let's get right into our supporters. So, Lifeology is a group private practice here in the heart of Dallas. They have locations in Oak Cliff, in Uptown, in Fort Worth, in Cedar Hill, Austin, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm sure I'm missing some in there, Frisco, but they're all over. So if you've ever thought of seeking out a counselor, they're the perfect place to start. So wefixbrains.com, super cute and catchy as well. Their pricing starts at $35 an hour to see a counselor, which is just incredible. It makes it accessible to everyone. And as well as they have early morning appointments, late evening appointments, and weekend appointments. So definitely check them out. They're incredible. I train there as a therapist, so a little biased, but they're awesome. Yes, and their motto is creative solutions to stuck problems.
Yes, and in speaking of creative solutions to stuck problems, they have gone as far as creating a school that is bringing an innovative way to mental health and well-being called the Lifeology Institute for Psychotherapeutic Yoga. So bringing the blend of Western and Eastern approach to healing the mind and the body. They are targeting therapists, mental health professionals, as well as yogis that are wanting to enhance the work that they're doing with clients and being really able to integrate both approaches, the Eastern and the Western, to healing. So check them out. In May, they are offering a 200-hour course specifically for mental health professionals. So the Lispy School.
Yes, and Yoga Alliance certified, so you can teach anywhere. They're amazing. We love them. We're both graduates from there.
Yes.
So, but let's get into our topic today and talk to our guest. We have Liz Moody, who is a #1 best-selling author of a cookbook on Amazon, Healthier Together. She used to be an editor for MindBodyGreen. So we're so excited to have her on today. Liz, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hello. Yeah, so that's just a little brief intro. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a long and windy story, but I was a writer long before I was a food person. I had a national newspaper column that I got when I was 16 years old, and I wrote that for 7 years. And then I wrote books, I wrote other stuff, and then I ended up having a really bad bout of anxiety when I was living in London with my husband while he was going to graduate school. And at that time, I was completely agoraphobic. I was bedbound for about a month. And so I had lots of time to read stuff on the internet. And so I spent a lot of that time studying up on health and nutrition and all of those types of things, and food and healing your body with food. So I started to cook for myself at the time, which I had never done. I tell a story in my book about how I hadn't eaten a vegetable before I met my husband. Yeah, it was intense. And he was from Berkeley, so he was like, which is
Oh,
Berkeley is like very like hippie and
uh-huh.
Alice Waters and all of that. So he was appalled, and he took me to my first farmers market and was like, "Here, have some kale. Your body really needs it."
You're like,
Have
what
some
is this?
kale. Let's get this
um,
intravenously
yeah,
put in
so
her
he was like,
body.
"You need this right now." But yeah, so I was learning to cook, and I also sort of was learning the health and nutrition side. And because I'd spent so many years as a journalist, I was able to like really dive into the information in a way that wasn't just like reading everything that there is online and being like, oh, I'll assimilate that as truth. I'm really good at differentiating what's real and what's fake. And I applied my journalism background to that. So started to cook for myself, and then I ended up getting my first cookbook deal, which was for a popsicle cookbook. And then
That's really
Popsicles
cool.
cookbook?
yeah, it's healthy popsicles. It's called
Oh
Glow
no.
Pops.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just sorry. I just don't tend to think of that as
Yeah, well,
food
I think
category.
that's
Yeah.
it's funny because I wasn't like qualified to get a cookbook at the time at all, and one of my life mottos is to never be the one to say no to yourself. So if you ever have like an idea or you want to do something, always try it and let somebody else say no to you. And so that's what I did with this book. I had the idea for it, and then I literally Googled it, like how to write a cookbook proposal. Found like a cookbook proposal online. There was one from Heidi Swanson, who's a really wonderful food blogger and cookbook author. And I copied her format, did it for the popsicle cookbook, and then like cold emailed it around. I got my literary agent, and then she pitched it to publishing houses, and it ended up 7 publishing houses ended up bidding on it and like starting a bidding war. And if I had sat there and been like, you shouldn't write a cookbook, like who are you to write a cookbook, that would have never happened,
Yes.
Yeah. So then that sort of led to my job at MindBodyGreen. I ended up being the food director by the time I left there, which meant that I sort of ran all of the food content on the site, whether it was video content or the written articles. I was either writing them or editing them, and I was sort of managing the tone and the feel of the section. And I think that really created the base for who I am today, which is I consider myself somebody who synthesizes information from the best functional doctors and healing professionals in the country, who I luckily have had access to through my journalism. And then I also synthesize information from the best chefs. And the best doctors tend to make food that's very healing, but not necessarily very delicious. And the best chefs tend to make food that's maybe not very healing, also a little tricky to make at home. They always have like great ideas, but a really long recipe list, and it's just tricky to do it on a Tuesday night. And so I synthesize both of their knowledge and I turn it into easy recipes that are super delicious, really like drool worthy recipes that you can actually make at home and will heal your body.
Your Instagram is incredible. Like, talk about drooling. I'm drooling constantly at your story and your feed. It's amazing.
That's the goal. I'm kind of like, I always describe myself as kind of like a trashy eater, for lack of a better word. Like, I think because I wasn't raised with vegetables, I don't crave like salads and like traditional sort of healthy food. So I'm always trying to find ways to make healthy food feel like that stuff you're going to sit around on a Saturday and be like, oh my God, I like wish I was eating this, but it's packed with vegetables,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the description of your cookbook of it's food for your soul and food for your relationship. And it seems just like a whole wellness perspective around food. Like it's not just food to you.
Yeah. Well, I think that community is sort of one of the missing elements in not just the wellness world, but the world at large, but it definitely is reflected in the wellness world. And so my goal with this book, I think the subtitle is Nourish Your Body, Nourish Your Relationships, but basically that if you can make your community stronger, that will help you be healthier. There's so many studies that show that you're healthier if you're getting healthy with a partner or somebody else to support you, or if you're making bad choices and you're surrounding yourself with people making bad choices, that makes you more likely to make bad choices as well. But then also to use food as a basis to strengthen your relationship. So to have that like full 360 interaction.
Yes. Yeah. I want to hear more about your anxiety and agoraphobia. We got to meet you at Good Fest, so you talked about that a little bit more there. Can you share that with our listeners? Because I know I mean, I've struggled with anxiety, and so many of my clients have struggled with anxiety. That's my specialty is anxiety. So,
Well, maybe we should talk more.
yes.
So anxiety is, I've always been, my dad like described me as sort of like a neurotic Woody Allen-ish kid. So like, it wasn't bad. I wasn't having like panic attacks all the time or anything, but, if there was a swine flu outbreak, I was like positive that I was going to get it. And if anything was going to go wrong, it would happen to me. My mom had a really traumatic accident when I was 2 years old, and she was in the hospital for almost a year. And I think that cemented in my brain at a very young age that the 1 in a million stuff that you like assume will never happen to anybody can like definitely happen to you. I wasn't like crazy anxious, but I was always sort of mildly anxious. And then I had a traumatic experience where when I was 19 years, I was kind of like a party kid. When I was in college, I worked at like a coffee shop in Amsterdam when I was 18.
Okay, not that, but yes. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, coffee shops in Amsterdam don't sell coffee, just FYI. So I was in Brazil traveling by myself when I was 19. I would spend months traveling by myself as part of the newspaper column that I was writing at the time. And I smoked some weed that I bought in a favela, which is like sort of the ghetto in Brazil. And I had a seizure, which I was by myself. So, and there could have been so many reasons for it. Like the weed could have been laced, or I was also like not eating very well at the time. I was sort of borderline anorexic, and my weed can cause your blood sugar to drop really dramatically, which can cause a seizure. And there's all these reasons for it, but I didn't internalize that. I just was like, I'm totally fine. And I had this seizure, so I could have a seizure at any time. So I started having what I realize now were panic attacks, but I didn't know they were that. I was always like, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of another seizure. But then I would like sit down or do something, and I thought I was preventing the seizure when really I was just dealing with the panic attack. So I would have those. I didn't really know what they were. And I had so many other, I think, positive things in my life at the time. I had good friends. I was in college. I was continuing to party and do a lot of drugs, so maybe some numbing and, coping mechanisms. And then life went on. And then when I was about 24 or 25, my husband and I moved to London. And it was for him to do a graduate school program. And the graduate program is a really great program, but it essentially requires you to be at school from 7 a.m. until midnight. Like, it was a very intensive program. And I quit my job at the time because I wanted to write a novel, which was sort of my lifelong dream. So I was like, this will be a perfect opportunity. I'll write a novel. It'll be wonderful. And because of that, I was literally spending almost 100% of my time alone. Like, my husband would leave before I woke up in the morning. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. So spoiler alert, we made it through. He would leave before I woke up in the morning, and he would come home after I went to sleep. And I was just in my head. Like, we didn't have a lot of money at the time. So I didn't feel justified, like even going to a coffee shop to work, because I didn't want to spend that extra money. And I would literally go days and weeks without seeing people. And I think that not having that structure and then not having that community in place just heightened my anxiety massively. So it just started to get worse and worse and worse until I started to have panic attacks whenever I left the house. And then I basically stopped leaving the house. I'd go once a week for therapy, which was wonderful. I'd have a panic attack like on the way there every single time, but I was like, this is worth it. And it honestly didn't, it's still not completely gone. I definitely struggle with anxiety very regularly, but it didn't go away to the point where I was very, very functional again, honestly, until I started working a full-time job again, where I had that structure in place in my life and was constantly surrounded by other people in that way. And I think that a huge lesson for me during that time was how important both structure and community are for me and my mental health.
Absolutely. Wow, what a story. That's incredible.
Casual.
No, we appreciate you though, just opening up and being so transparent. I mean, we can understand that there's a lot of factors that go into it that, we're out of your control, right? When we
Yeah.
talk about anxiety being genetic and then, situational. And
And
of course,
having a traumatic experience at a young
right.
age. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just so much to like lead up to that. And yeah, I can just so relate to you, Liz, I've had my bout with social anxiety, general anxiety, panic attacks, phobias, hypochondria, it all. So,
So what do you find is like very triggering for you and what's very helpful for you?
yeah, so depending on which disorder we're going to talk about, right? So I think for me, exposure was really helpful. So one of my biggest fears in life was for me, like thinking that I'm going to pee my pants. And it was like,
That's so interesting.
yeah. Well, and I had a traumatic experience where a teacher, like in the 6th grade, like didn't let me go to the bathroom, and I like couldn't hold it anymore. The door was locked, and so yeah, it was just like very traumatic. And so, of just like allowing myself, like I would just get so much anxiety whenever I had to go to the bathroom, and there was like no bathroom around. So allowing to like sit with that discomfort, and that's really like with anything that I've been anxious about, is like being able to like tolerate that discomfort. So that would be like the main thing that was helpful for me. But
So
definitely,
I have a question about that. Since
Yeah.
you're like a professional,
Sure.
I'm afraid of flying, and I've been afraid of flying since I was very young. My parents, after they got divorced as a result of this accident, and then my mom moved to Arizona, my dad moved to California. So flying was always something I did by myself, and it was really like emotionally raw. Like I was crying and leaving one parent and stuff like that. And I've done so much exposure. Like I've flown all over the world. I fly probably once or twice a month right now for my job. And I'm still afraid of it. And I'm just like, how much exposure? Like literally every time and I do it because I'm always like, I would rather live my best life. And I don't want to look back when I'm 80 and think like I limited myself in this way. But literally every time, I don't make plans for after I fly because I'm like, sure, I'm going to be dead. And I like literally every time I'm like, I hope this trip to Aruba was worth me dying for. Even the Good Fest, Dawson, I was like, well, at least I had a good time.
Goodbye, family. Love you.
But like I've had so much exposure, and my dad's a therapist, as is my mom, and
Oh my gosh.
both of my husband's parents as well.
What?
What an interesting family dynamic. I don't know about all that. No, I'm just kidding. I
It's a
bet that's
lot.
so great.
But so I understand like systematic desensitization and exposure therapy and all of that. But I'm like, how many times am I exposing wrong? Like what's going on?
No, I think it's interesting. So with flying, I think for me, so think about how often like you have to go to the bathroom. Like I was doing exposure like throughout my day.
10 times a day.
Yeah. And so for you, it's like once a month. So there's not a lot of like time that you can't just fly every day. I guess you could.
Do you think if I flew every day, that would get rid of it?
I think, it could help, I think that it would, but I think the way that I see anxiety sometimes is not necessarily of like being able to totally get rid of it, but seeing it on a spectrum and like, is it, like, can I tolerate it? Can I tolerate this amount of anxiety? And how can I do that? Do I know how to distract myself? Do I know how to
Breathe.
self-affirmations, breathing, that kind of stuff. So, and my phobia isn't all like totally gone away. Still, whenever I travel, sometimes that can come up for me because I'm in an unfamiliar place and I don't know where all the bathrooms are. And I'm like, I thought I got rid of this. Like, what? So it still can come up. Does that make sense though?
Yeah, it does.
Sorry to not give you
It's frustrating because I really want to be one of those people who just like loves flying and is like so excited for it every time, especially because I love traveling so much and because my job makes me travel so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Has it gotten any better, would you say, since you've...
Off and on,
Yeah.
but then, because there's a period where I would like literally throw up and have a panic attack every time I flew. And that sucked. Especially I was once in the middle seat and I like threw up in a barf bag, and my husband was like, I've never seen somebody like lean so far away from a person who's just like,
It's like,
you're not
I don't claim
use
her.
the barf bags. Like they're decorative. but it's definitely gotten better. Also, I take Klonopin a lot when I fly, which I didn't for a long time, and it was terrible. And I think because I'm in the wellness world and I'm sort of loath to, I've read all the studies about Alzheimer's and Klonopin and all of that, and I was very anxious about taking that. But then I was like, you know what, taking it 10 times a year isn't, it's worth it for me. So that was a decision that I made that helped a lot, and giving myself that sort of grace, I think.
Absolutely. When I first started in the counseling world, I was definitely like, just had this sense of like, oh, I want to heal naturally, like totally naturally. Therapy is the way to go, nutrition, all those things. And I just see more and more with myself, with my clients, that sometimes medication like helps so much, and just to own that and to use that as, something to rely on, to be supported from, because it can make life so much better.
Totally. And I think it's definitely a balance. Like a lot of the work that my dad does is specifically around getting people off of their Klonopin addictions, and that's like a gnarly thing unto itself.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's, for me, it's about taking it very, very intentionally, and not getting into these periods where you're just sort of taking it because it's part of your routine or some doctor tells you that you need it, but more being like, what is this bringing to me? Is this part of what I need right now at this moment?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and what are you doing outside of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that my dad's a big fan of like the best use of medication is to get you to a place where you can do the rest of the practices that you need to no longer need the medication.
Yes, support that. Yeah. So speaking of those practices, I'm curious, what do you do on the daily to help manage your anxiety?
Yeah, lots of stuff. So like I said before, structure and community are huge. So I try to wake up at the same time every day. I try to meditate, work out, put on pants. Like, especially this has been a transition from working in an office to working for myself again. So I'm trying to be very cognizant of all the ways I can build structure in, which has been honestly a little hectic because with my book coming out, I lost almost all sense of structure. So I'm hoping to build that in more, but also community, where I never go a day without like actively spending time with other people, and quality time, not just like saying hi to the guy at the grocery store, So those two things are super important. And then beyond that, I meditate for 20 minutes every day. I do Vedic meditation, which I love. And that's like a mantra meditation. It's similar to TM, except for they had like a scandal where they split from each other and had to name it something different. Yeah. And so I do that for 20 minutes every day. I take, and I work out. Like I said, I do like a 20 to 30 minute home workout as much as possible, which I love. And that makes me feel super, super good. For supplements, I take magnesium. I like to say that I'll overdose on magnesium as like a acute anxiety cure. Like I tell people, if you're having like those moments of intense panic, you take double the dose. I take pure encapsulations pills, and you take double the recommended dosage, and you literally feel like a palpable difference in 20 minutes. Like the closest thing I've found to taking a Xanax. I love that. I also do CBD pretty regularly, and I really love CBD. And also for CBD, my friend wrote a book about CBD, which is called CBD Oil Everyday Secrets. I highly recommend it for anybody who's interested in CBD.
We'll link that in our show notes for sure.
Yeah. But she explains in there how you're sort of, the goal with CBD is you're toning your endocannabinoid system. So you don't want to just take it in times where you acutely need it. You need to build it up in your system. And the more you build it up in your system, the more effective it is. So I try to take it pretty regularly, probably not every day, but at least every other day, so that I have that base supply if I do acutely need it. I think eating can do a huge thing for anxiety, as you would imagine that I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
I think a huge thing with anxiety is misattribution. So when you feel symptoms of anxiety, like sweaty palms or like an upset stomach or a little bit of a racing heart feeling or a little bit lightheaded, often our brains will work faster like on this emotional level than they'll work on a cognitive level. And they'll be like, oh, you're anxious. This is a symptom of anxiety. And your brain can always, always, always find a reason that you should be anxious. So it'll just pull something out, and then you'll think about that thing, and then you'll actually be anxious, and it'll be this like vicious cycle. So I find one of the best tools to minimize anxiety is to minimize misattribution. So for me, that's eliminating caffeine. I don't do caffeine at all. because it causes, again, that racing heart and the sweaty palms and all of that. Eating a lot of gut healing food so I don't get the sort of upset stomach that's indicative of anxiety, and then keeping my blood sugar super, super, super stable. That was huge for me with all the recipes in my book. They're all super blood sugar stabilizing with a mixture of like healthy fats and fibers and protein, so that you don't have that blood sugar roller coaster, which if you get on it when it crashes, it causes all of those symptoms that your body wants to misattribute as anxiety.
Yes, everything that you talked about is so grounding and like the opposite of like chaos, anxiety, just kind of that swirls around you, like routine.
Yeah. It's hard in New
community.
York City, honestly. Like I find that I'm the least anxious when I'm, can make it to like Colorado and go hiking or places where I get a lot of sunshine and stuff like that. I think that it can be tricky. So I almost go, like if I'm hiking in Colorado, I won't do a lot of my other practices because I feel like I'm getting that grounding elsewhere. But in New York, I feel like I almost need to like triple up because the city is so buzzy and heady.
Yes, I can imagine so
true.
how much, environment plays on our mood and anxiety. I think it's in Switzerland now. The doctors are prescribing for anxiety to go on a hike, which isn't that cool?
I love
Yes.
that. Well, and there's been studies about forest bathing and its effects on anxiety, which forest bathing is just
never
like
heard
a
that term. I love
fancy
it.
Japanese term for spending time in nature. And that can be like a park. I'm lucky enough in Brooklyn. I live right by a beautiful waterfront park, so I try to get out there as much as I can. But just seeing trees and green has like a palpable effect on your anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. Independent of movement too, as well.
Yeah, you can just
Right.
sit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have somebody give you a piggyback ride.
Is that your husband? No, we're big tree huggers.
Yes, we love
Is
being
there
out
good
in nature.
nature near Dallas?
We have to, kind of
travel.
like you, we have to make it work. There's like a man-made lake very close by our home, and so we can like go on walks there, parks here and there. But yeah, you really do have to like travel outside of Dallas to get that. Like
I was
actual
so
nature.
impressed by the nature in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
It was
It's-
crazy.
Yes, it's incredible. Did you get time to like go visit around while you were there?
Yeah, we hiked the entire green belt, which I think is like a 12-mile hike.
Wow.
The Barton Springs green belt, I
Yeah,
think. So you like go
yes.
in on one end and you hike the whole thing. And then we also did a hike. I don't remember what it's called, but it was like bluebell season or the flowers were insane. The wildflowers were
Oh, yeah.
beautiful.
Yes, the blue
Yeah.
bonnets.
Yeah, that's
The
Texas
blue bonnet,
yes.
wildflowers. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious for you. So you made this comment whenever we saw you at the Good Fest. You asked this question, what is the wellness bullshit that you bought into? And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish, like, I'm embarrassed some of the things that I like bought into at one point.
Wait,
in
what are
time.
yours?
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is so embarrassing and vulnerable to share. But okay, whenever I was in middle school, I don't know why my mom let me buy this, but it was a ab stimulator. Like I got it on an infomercial or something similar to that, and you like wear it on your abs and it like electrocutes you, and I thought I would get abs that way. It does not work. So that was one of them. But yeah, what are some of your wellness bullshit things that you bought into?
So not to sound bratty, but I don't buy into a lot of them. I find myself more being in the position of like being a truth teller to wellness. I think because of my journalistic background, so I can a lot easier understand how trends are being essentially created by media who are hoping to get you to click on titles and headlines so that they can sell ad space, and then also by companies who are hoping to sell products. So I think because of my background, I'm pretty aware of that stuff. But a few trends that have recently been bothering me is celery juice. I think celery juice is it's not bad for you, but like you're not getting any benefits from it.
You're not going to cure cancer with it?
You can't cure cancer. I also I would prefer in general if we didn't take medical advice from somebody who's not a doctor and is receiving this advice just in his brain from like spirit. I think that's a lovely story, but I don't think that's the best place to get stuff you're going to be basing your health decisions on. so I think you can get the same effects of celery juice with a pinch of sea salt in water in the morning. You get your electrolytes. I think a lot of the benefits people are seeing from celery juice are because they are hydrating, which we are chronically underhydrated as a society. And I think celery juice is really wasteful. You're discarding a lot of the fiber of the celery. I'm a huge proponent of green smoothies. If you look at my Instagram, it's like green smoothies all the time, every day.
Yes,
and I like smoothies because they keep the fiber intact, which again is going to help keep your blood sugar really stable and help you reap and it's good for your gut, it's good for your digestion, it helps you reap all of the benefits of what you're eating. So removing the fiber from celery, when celery is like 95, I mean, it's mostly fiber, it's literally like fiber and water, seems so wasteful to me. And it's expensive. And I don't like people to get the impression that wellness needs to be expensive to work. In a similar vein, I think a lot of the adaptogen trends that are going around, I'm very wary of, not because I don't think adaptogens are effective, but because I think they're incredibly effective. They're really potent medicines that have previously been, prescribed by traditional Chinese medicine practitioners or Ayurvedic medicine practitioners. And the fact that people on Instagram are like casually putting 5 different powders into their lattes in the morning, and they don't know how those things interact, and they don't know how those things interact with their bodies, and then their followers are doing it, and it's like a game of telephone where I think it just gets worse as you go down the line. That I don't love that, as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm behind the trend. I don't even know what an adaptogen is.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so an adaptogen, I mean, at its base, an adaptogen is a substance that like adapts to your body. So like if you're feeling anxious, like it will adapt to your nervous system and make you feel less anxious. If you're feeling tired, it'll make you feel more energetic, etc. But there's just a lot of different powders and potions you can get at places like Sun Potion, or like, have you seen the moon juice, like beauty dust, sex dust?
We have some.
Yeah,
Yes.
So those are like adaptogenic.
I have bought into that.
And, those are maybe even slightly better than when people just buy the powders and mix it on their own. But you don't need that to be well. You need very few things to be well. And I hate this idea that you need to buy your way into wellness. And the moon juice products are particularly expensive. And you don't need them to have good sex, and you don't need them to be beautiful. You can reap the same beauty benefits by using like the zest of a lemon. When you use lemon, and you're getting all the vitamin C and the collagen building qualities, and then you're not wasting the lemon zest. So it's like an extra bonus. And I think that we should be looking more to ingredients we can just buy in grocery stores than these like fancy things that people are doing just to create an economy.
Yes. And out of convenience.
Yes.
So, no, I love that you say that. I'm curious for you in terms of how long you've been in the wellness world. Have you seen a development of mental health becoming, I guess, more prominent? Where do you see that?
More prominent in how we're talking about it, or?
Yeah, I guess, is there more of an emphasis? Are people taking it into consideration when we're talking wellness?
Yeah, I think that they are. I mean, I think the thing with anxiety is that if you ask people, I think I did at Good Fast, ask people to raise their hands if they had anxiety. And like, it tends to be everybody in the room every time you ask. And I think there's a number of factors that are at play making the world at large feel like mental health is a bigger issue. And I also think it's slightly being destigmatized at the same time. So that's good. And both of those lead to people considering it more in wellness when they're, writing wellness articles or doing wellness practices. But I still think we have a long way to go in terms of really destigmatizing it. I think with mental health, people tend to feel comfortable talking about it when they're on the other side of it. I talked about this on my Instagram a while back, where I was having a really anxious day and I called in sick to work. And even I work in the wellness world, I felt uncomfortable saying, I'm feeling really anxious, I'm not coming to work today, because I was nervous I'd be perceived as weak or less than or incapable at my job. And I had a very, I had a position that I had to make a lot of decisions, and I needed people to respect me. And I think that's problematic when we only talk about like, I had anxiety and now I'm through it, or I had depression and now I'm through it. And I think we'll get to a better destigmatization point when people can say like, I'm feeling this right now, and that doesn't take away from who I am or, in any other capacity in my life.
I can't thank you enough for saying that. Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I think you can do a lot to work on managing your mental health and wellness in all ways, but then you're also a human living a human life, and struggles are going to pop up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that the world at large is sort of conspiring against our mental health at this moment. Like, obviously, I think that the political situation, regardless of what you believe, it's been fraught with tension, and it makes people feel like they're more divided than they are together. And I think that's really problematic. And then I also think the loss of community is a huge, huge, huge problem in our modern world. The fact that, like, moving out from having roommates is considered a success and something you should be trying to attain. And people move across the country from where they were raised, so they no longer are living near their family or their friends. And the fact that we no longer work office jobs, a lot of us, you can work remote, and all of these things are just conspiring to have people sitting alone with their computers. And I think that's so problematic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. We just recorded an episode about adult friendship and how important it is. And it's so primitive, like that desire for community.
Absolutely. And I think that people, I know I do this, but I have the assumption that everybody else has their friend group set and that they're all good. And so if I move to a new place, I feel fine reaching out and being like, I don't have friends. Do you want to hang out or whatever? But in New York City, I would never I'm working on feeling comfortable reaching out to people that I like and just being like, I like you. And also I'm changing all the time. So it makes sense that my friends, I want to keep some of my friends, but it also makes sense to be constantly adding friends who reflect where you are in your life at any moment. And that's not embarrassing or something to be ashamed of.
Right. Yeah. It is a little like there is this awkward feeling of having to ask somebody, do you want to be my friend? But you should be doing that. That feels good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've had such a positive response every single time I've done anything like that. And it feels so vulnerable. But I've had such a positive response.
Yes. I wanted to go back to being an editor in the wellness world. What are some of the taglines you see that people really draw people in? Some of the titles that people use, kind of the
well, at
behind the
MBG,
scenes.
we had our big ones, which if you want to get clicks on a story, you talk about gut health, you talk about inflammation, you talk about hormone balance, you talk about anxiety. And I think those are people's desire to have a simple functional problem. And then we were really trusted for the science behind our stories. So I think people wanted science-backed solutions for that. But beyond that, people love stuff that's the one thing for this or the 5-minute trick for this. Because people are very loath to see stuff systemically or holistically. I think it just often feels very daunting and overwhelming. And they would much prefer usually, I think, to have a simple solution of one supplement you can take or something like that, or one dietary change you can make that will have this outsized impact. And unfortunately, that's not usually the case. One, because we're all different. So people are always asking me what diet is the best diet? You've studied this stuff so much. And I'm there isn't a best diet for everybody. The best way to find out what the best diet for you is honestly to do a 30-day elimination diet and then add stuff in to see what's irritating for you, because some people might do great with chickpeas and other people might not. Some people might do great with animal protein, other people might not. And it's just so individual. But doing a 30-day elimination diet sucks. It's miserable. It's boring. It's not fun. So that's why people just want to be told the vegan diet is the healthiest diet, the paleo diet is the healthiest diet, but it's not for everybody. It is, all of them are good for some people, and for short amounts of time too. I hate when people decide they're just going to be keto forever. The keto diet is a therapeutic diet that's designed to be done in short stints. It's not designed to be done as you eat that way long term. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about stuff like that. But in general, I think people are looking for the quick and easy solution versus the long-term, more difficult fix, which I totally get. Me too.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
even your question of how can I get better on flights?
Yes.
Like we want that, kind of instant gratification in a way, and
to avoid from anything painful.
which so makes sense, the pain and suffering piece.
Well, that's why I like to combine stuff that feels short or good in the short term and good in the long term. Like the recipes in my book, I try to make them good in the short term because when you're building community, you're cooking with other people, whether that's like a friend, a coworker, a loved one, a parent. And they're also really delicious. Like they're shit you crave. It's like, General Tso's cauliflower or salted caramel cracked popcorn or like the best healthy cookies, which I don't know if you guys have seen because they're everywhere right now. But there's stuff you crave and you feel good about. So you're not like eating something that you don't enjoy and feeling like you're sacrificing something. So you should reap these outside benefits that make your sacrifice worth it. So you feel good in the short term, but then you're nourishing your body with so many vegetables and keeping your hormones stable and all of that. So you start to feel better in the long term. And to the point of the diet stuff, I wrote in the intro to the book that it was really interesting to me interviewing all these doctors, because even the ones who are super paleo or super vegan, everybody agrees that 80% of your plate should be vegetables, every single person. And then they're spending, I think it was Mark Sisson, who's the founder of the Primal diet, which is a version of paleo. And he was like, it's crazy how much time we spend arguing over the last 20% when we all agree on the first 80%. So that's the frame of the book. It's the 80% everybody agrees on, all the vegetables with meat, grains, and all of that used more as a condiment so that you can kind of pick and choose for the last 20%.
I love that. I can't wait to get it and dive into it.
And cook
I'm
together,
so excited to hear you guys
we're going to
think.
be healthier together.
Yeah, Julie and
We
I
live
You guys have to
decided.
send me pics. I love when people send me pics of like them cooking together, or I've gotten so many good ones of parents with their like cute kids cooking, which makes me so happy. Or like pet pictures too, and they're like, I'm getting healthier together with my cat, and I'm like, I am all about that.
I love it. Yes.
I love it.
We'll add in Callie, our
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah. I just want to emphasize too, I really am glad that you put it out there that there is no right way, right? And encouraging people in terms of like taking care of themselves, right?
It's individual. Yeah. Which is so true. Liz, going back again, I'm curious about your experience in therapy. Like, obviously, that's what our podcast is about. Will you share a little bit about like how that benefited you, how it was hard, how it didn't benefit you, just your experience in general?
Yeah, so I'm a hard therapy client, I think, because again, I was raised by two therapists. So I come in and I'm like, these are my attachment issues, and like
I know everything.
yeah, I'm very self-aware, and I can tell you all the stuff I'm aware of, but then I'm like, okay, fix me. Like I'll kind of go in and be like, okay, here's the stuff, now fix me. And I recognize that that's not fun. Like I wouldn't want to hang out with that client either. So I haven't had, I often have the experience of going to therapists that I'm sort of disappointed with. And I haven't yet in New York City found a therapist that I really connect with. I always say I have enough money to go to therapy. I don't have enough money to go to like 5 wasted sessions to find the therapist that I want to find. Although my dad says that a good therapist will often give you a complimentary session for the first one so you can see if you guys are like a fit. Like he does that in his practice, which I haven't tried asking for that yet, but he says you should always ask for that because a lot of times they'll do it. But I had the one therapist that I did really, really, really love was my one in London. He was like a soft-spoken gardener. And he just had the best vibe. And I just had the best experience with him. And then also I have to speak to, I did this experience called On-Site, which is a mental health retreat, essentially. I don't know. There's not like a great way to describe it, but it's outside of Nashville. It's a week, 6 days long program called the Living Centered program. And it's attended by these like insane people. Like you're not allowed to talk about what you do there. And they're trying to sort of equalize everybody. But the people who go, you're like recognize them from magazine covers, and they're like business owners and Grammy winners and stuff like that. But you essentially do group experiential therapy sessions with 7 people in your group. You do like a lecture in the morning and then group therapy for the rest of the day with the same 7 people for the entire time you're there. There's no phones, no internet, no computers, iPads, any of that. and you're just focused on sort of healing your traumas, whatever they mean. I mean, like everybody has trauma that has changed how they live their life.
Yes.
And so some people are dealing with like, my father was an alcoholic who sexually abused me. And some people are dealing with like, I'm 40 years old and I feel like I'm never going to get married. Like, what's going on? So there's like really a huge range of what people are dealing with. But I did that pretty recently, and I found that to be completely transformative in so many ways. Like, I was talking to some of the people there, and it felt like fitting a year of therapy into a week. And it was about that same price, honestly. So it was kind of like a nice way to do it for me, especially because I've had such a hard time finding a therapist that I love in New York.
Yes. Well, and I think that you speak to, and I tell this to all my clients whenever we're first seeing each other, is that our relationship is the most important part of therapy. If you don't like me, fire me. Like, that's just, it's the biggest part that makes therapy work. And so thank you for sharing that and your experience in treatment. That makes so much sense that, yeah, a year's worth of therapy in a week.
I'm also a huge advocate of couples therapy. I haven't done it a ton, but I've done it a little bit. And I'm in a very, very healthy, happy relationship. Like, I love my husband. I'm so grateful to him. You can see like lots of cute pics of him in the book when you get it.
Yeah.
But I think couples therapy, we've been together since we were 21. I think there's a lot of communication patterns that are less than healthy that we've built in the 10 years that we've been together. And I think just occasionally going, if I had unlimited money, I would do like one couples therapy session a month. I don't think I'd want to do more than that because it can sort of make you focus on some of the more negative elements of your relationship if you're doing all the time. But I think doing it occasionally can help you build these really nice communication styles. It can help you just like work through stuff that might be a little trickier. It can help you consider each other's needs better. And it can also, just merely by the fact that you're spending like $300 a session, I think it reminds you, that's New York prices. I don't know if it's like affordable.
It's a little elevated
else.
in New York, but it's an
expensive.
investment, and it shows that you are
It's an investment. It shows that you're invested in your relationship. And I think literally just that, same with like, I paid $800 to do my meditation training, which was so much money at the time, but I meditated after I did the training because I was like, I spent $800 on this. Like, I need to put the time in. And I think that's similar with couples therapy.
Absolutely. Yeah. The investment, which is the accountability. And I love Michelle Obama. I don't know if you read her new book, Becoming, but she talks about her and Barack going to couples therapy. Like, I mean, I just think
like, if you don't, like, if your husband becomes president of the United States, and you know that she was so not about that, you know, like she did not want her husband to become president of the United States, and you don't go to therapy to work on that, like, you're crazy. Like, that just feels like, of course you need therapy to deal with that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember hearing Pink, the musician, talk about her and her husband. I hope they're still together. I don't know. I think they are. But she talked about how she goes with her husband to therapy for maintenance. And so there doesn't have to be a problem. Like, it can just be, just like individual therapy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We're getting low on time, and I just want to keep talking to you. This has been so great.
I know, it's the best and worst thing about podcasts. You're like, you get into a good conversation and then it has to be over.
Yes. Yeah.
At least for now.
Can you share how our listeners can find you and all that good stuff? And we'll list it all in our show notes as well.
Yeah, so I'm easy. You just need to remember 4 words for me. So it's Liz Moody and then Healthier Together. So my website is lizmoody.com. My Instagram is @LizMoody. And then my book is called Healthier Together. And my podcast is also called Healthier Together. So if you can remember Liz Moody, Healthier Together, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So definitely please follow Liz, get her cookbook.
Yes, we'll be posting updates. And we're so thankful that, especially this being such a busy season for you, that you were able to share with our listeners. I think you had a lot of valuable things to say and helping to normalize taking care of oneself and anxiety and finding healthy ways that work for yourself on an individual level. So thank you.
And
thank you guys so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff. So this was... You didn't cure my fear of flying, which I'm a little bit annoyed about, but other than that, it was a lovely conversation.
Yes. Okay, Liz. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes and share with your friends. It really helps us reach more people.
We might only record once a week, but we're with you every day.